Chapter 2: The Great Experiment. Humans have always been called the smartest species to ever exist on planet Earth. We've graced this Earth for thousands of years and have been able to adapt to specific ways of life. Our physical being is a generalist. In plain terms, it meant that our bodies are the hardware of our system. Our specialization is our human brain, which enables us to think and distinguish us from our Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon cousins. Our brain allows us to develop new knowledge and ways on how to improve our way of life. The brain's interactions with nature, through culture, allow humans to still be successful and exist in the current world. With this specialization, we are able to construct civilizations globally, which is our greatest experiment. The question now is whether civilization itself is a progress track for mankind. This is the main question of our group's presentation.
Culture is the collective personality of a society, and we establish our civilizations around them. As our civilizations grow, our culture and technology increases exponentially as well. We begin running at maximum capacity to support the state of our societies, as well as increase in our numbers. This may prove deadly as we consume large quantities of our Earth's limited natural capital. This overcompensation of our natural resources increases the deterioration of our Earth and thus makes it unsustainable. We are entrapped by our own ideology to improve our cultures, and we fail to realize the physical limitations of our Earth. Humans naturally disrupt our ecosystems and use the excess natural capital that is provided by the planet. In this case, we grow and utilize these resources faster than how it should appear in nature. A long-lived species like the human race is unable to evolve significantly over such short intervals, even though our advances in technology and culture are cumulative and change over time. Our innate intelligence remains the same. Humans evolve at a slower rate in comparison to our own progression and advancements in culture. In this way, culture itself can be a cause for concern.
The Neolithic Revolution was a fundamental change in the way people lived. The shift from hunting and gathering to agriculture led to permanent settlements and establishment of social classes and the eventual rise of civilization. The Neolithic Revolution is a major turning point in a human history. The wild crops, including wheat, barley, and peas, are traced to the Near East region. Cereal were grown in Syria as long as 9,000 years ago, while figs were cultivated even earlier. Seedless fruits discovered in the Jordan Valley suggest fig trees were being planted some 11,300 years ago. Though the transition from wild harvesting was gradual, the switch from a nomadic to a settled way of life is marked by the appearance of early Neolithic villages with homes equipped with grinding stones for processing grain. The origin of rice and farming date to the same Neolithic period in China. Cattle, goats, and sheep and pigs all have their origin as farm animals in the so-called Fertile Crescent, a region covering eastern Turkey, Iraq, and southern West Iran. This region kick-started the Neolithic Revolution. Dates for the domestication of this animal range from between 13,000 to 10,000 years ago.
The important change from the Paleolithic age to the Neolithic age led to a growth in population, a reliable food supply, and specialization. In the Neolithic age, people began to grow food for themselves. This provided jobs for other people. This in turn led to the beginnings of civilization. Going from the Paleolithic age to the Neolithic age, people became wiser and converted from hunting to farming. This made things easier for many people, as now everyone began to grow food for themselves and their families, instead of looking and hunting for food, which was sometimes unsuccessful. It was difficult to hunt animals, gather berries, nuts, and grains. Therefore, when they began farming, it was much easier as they were farming in permanent villages and raised and herded animals. Next was the change from flake tools to the modern-day metal tools. As you can see, it was much harder to use the flake tools, as they weren't as stern and strong as the modern-day bow and arrow. This made things more difficult for hunters, as more time was spent and more effort was needed to ensure an animal was caught. Finally, we see the evolution of man living in a cave to living in a village. The main difference between the two is that in a village, the shelter is man-made, whereas in a cave, it is a natural shelter. So this implies that humans are becoming wiser in the sense of evolution.
Yeah, so that sums up the Great Experiment. So the Great Experiment refers to the human experience, which Ronald Wright, the author of the book, sees as a large experiment testing what conditions are required for a human civilization to succeed. So as Sinead has presented, like how caves have evolved villages and tools has evolved into better tools. These are all part of the human experiment, which is which how how the rural man evolved into civilized men in a civilization. So, is this great experiment successful or not? Well, Ronald Wright deemed the human experiment as a failure. Um, human beings try to improve as much as they can, but inadvertently create more problems along the way, just like how Brian has mentioned and Fred. Ronald Wright defined this as a progress trap. There is no other option to support humanity in how massive our numbers are besides to improve. There is also no way of turning back. It's only one way, one direction. As in, yeah, just one direction. In a linear way. So because of that desire to improve, which almost has turned into a need, it's getting uncontrollable. Our population is multiplying tremendously. The gap between the rich and the poor is getting wider. Some species of animals are getting extinct. Global warming caused droughts and unusually hot weather, and of course glaciers to thaw and ice caps to melt. Ronald Wright also predict that if we ignore the depletion of ecology and whatever negativity progress has caused, um, it will lead to a disastrous end. Ronald Wright also concluded that although we have grown more specialized, we are getting more and more vulnerable. That's the end of our presentation. We hope you have know a thing or two after that. But before we go, we want to ask 3 questions. Firstly, what are the differences between Paleolithic and Neolithic revolution? Secondly, do you think humans still need progress to support the rapidly growing population numbers? Last but not least, what are the negative consequences of humans' desire for progress? Thank you for paying attention to our presentation. It's a bit boring, but I think it's pretty interesting. Alright, bye guys.